I'm so excited to be here with Chris Hauck. He is a expert when it comes to marketing research, brand insights, and I'm so excited to talk with him today. Chris, if you can share more about what you do, your background,
Sure.
all the things.
Yeah, I'm a solo practice. So I do marketing research for clients. Not too many clients, just a few, but they're all over the world and they do interesting work in all sorts of different fields. And I'm not limited by any um, industry or type of work or anything like that. If I can do it and I'll come up with a good way to do it, then I'll do it.
Love it. How did you even get into the space? Because
Oh man, I've been here. I've been in this space for 100 years.
100. You guys, that means he's the expert
Feels
at
like
this.
it. Some days, China, it feels like it.
Doesn't.
Yeah, no, I found out about marketing research in grad school.
Okay.
So I was doing the basic MBA, which is all at where I went to college. It was all finance and accounting based. It was big on finance and consulting and that kind of stuff. Running your
Okay.
own business. So I was learning to run my own business about 25 years before I owned my own business,
Okay. Okay.
which is totally ridiculous, right? But
Well, no,
yeah,
because it gives you the knowledge, right? Did you feel like you were
right.
prepared for it when it came
Oh,
because of that?
yeah, but not from anything I learned in college. Like I,
Okay.
I do almost no finance. I outsource all the finance and accounting
I
part of the
do too.
business to
Okay.
get that off my plate. I like to do primary marketing research, and that's all I
Okay.
really know how to do. It's funny, people come and ask me to be on oh yeah, the local this local organization is doing something and they need a marketing guy to be on it. I'm like, well, don't look at me. I'm not a marketing guy.
Like,
I'm a
that's not what I
research
do.
guy. So yeah, so
That's
I'm I'm
hilarious.
I'm very, very specific to what I do. I mean, I do marketing, primary marketing research,
Okay.
qualitative and quantitative. And I owned my own firm with one of my best friends for years. And before that, I was on the consulting side, always selling projects. I feel like I've made a career of selling projects to people,
Mm.
convincing people to do projects.
Hmm.
And interest, the way I design them, they're always different, unique, and interesting. And that's the goal, is to make sure you learn something from them.
Yeah,
And
and I
we
think
want to
that's where the
learn things.
power. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what
Yeah,
the power comes in when it comes to marketing research is that everyone can't follow the same structure. You have to be creative to fit what matches your audience and what matches your market. Um,
I believe so. But I
yeah.
think the world is pushing us towards a very generic kind of research
Hmm.
process and design, and this space for creatives to design unique projects and do unique work is getting smaller and smaller. It's more
Now,
challenging to find the work.
now, how do you think that's going to change going into 2026 because of technology, because of AI, because we really need to really hone into our audience to make better decisions? How do you think that should shift as we come into this new year?
Sadly, it makes, I mean, all of this DIY, all the DIY tools that came up in the last 20 years, AI, and adding AI to it has just made it easier for anybody to do this work.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, that means that anybody is doing this work. So they don't have the experience to do it. They don't have the education to do it. They don't have the knowledge to do it. And these tools make them think that they can do it easily. It's just as easy as asking a question. The
Hmm.
reality is that, even asking a question is harder than you think.
Let's dig
Asking the
into
right
that.
question.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure,
yeah. Let's dig into
absolutely.
that. Because what does that really mean, right? Because a lot of people, regular brands, consultants that don't have really a lot of experience in this space, think it is as simple as asking the questions, hey, do you love our brand? So what do you,
Yeah.
as experts as yourself, what do you
Oh, let's
do
take
to
that question. Let's
further?
let's eat that. Let's tear
Okay,
that question up. Do you love
okay.
our brand,
Do
right?
you love our brand? Should
Well,
we start with
yeah.
that? Is that even a question to start with, right?
I've actually seen that question somewhere. And not somewhere serious, but I did see it on a survey once, and I'm like,
Who thought of this
You already
question?
told them that they're supposed to love your brand to get through this thing, right? Like
Ah,
that's the first thing you shouldn't do is bias your respondent by
yeah.
telling them who you are in the first place. So, by
Mm,
asking them, "Do you love our brand?" Essentially you said, "Hey, this is me, this is my brand. I'm a really nice guy. Would you give me a nice rating?"
yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
going
yeah.
to the car dealer and the guy goes, "Hey, if you give us a 10, people, my boss will like me and give me a
Uh-huh.
raise or some BS like that." So that, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'll just give the guy a 10. I liked him. It
So
doesn't mean that I like the service at all. It doesn't mean
yeah,
anything. It just means that I like the guy enough to give him what he
him a
asked
10.
for. you
Yeah. So
know,
will we call that fake reviews? Is that considered a fake review because of how we're asking
it's
the question?
not because
Okay.
it is a real review, but it's asked in such a biased way that the data
Yeah.
is not real, right? You
Okay.
can't ask it wrong and expect
Hmm.
to make sense out of the results.
Or to grow
I've
from the
also I've
results.
also had I've also had projects where, somebody will come to me, a client will come to me and say, "Hey, we did this with somebody else. We really don't agree with the results. Do you think you could look at it and give us, could you reanalyze this?"
Hmm.
And the problem isn't in the analysis normally. The problem is normally in the design, right? So if you
Okay.
write the survey poorly, then you can expect that the results will come out wrong, right?
Okay.
It's not,
Okay.
research isn't really, 90% of research isn't in the analysis.
Hmm.
It's in the design. It's at the front end. If you have to ask it right
Mm.
to get the right answers. If you ask it wrong, you might as well just, it's like it's like opening the IKEA box without instructions, right? Like,
Hmm.
now what?
Hmm. Hmm.
This could be
Hmm.
a cabinet, but it could be something else. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Because what is the ROI that they're getting from not doing it correctly? You know what I mean? So another question I have for you to come up with that is when they're not really trying to get real good context or really emotion from their
Mhm.
consumer, what is the ROI that they're really trying to get from spending all this money on the study? What does that get the brand?
Well, the thing is that they're trying not to spend all this money on the study, right? That's where they're starting. They're starting with that
Okay.
premise that I can do this cheaper, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
not with the other end of the equation, like what is the best way to do this in order to get the right answers so I can make good decisions? They're
Hmm.
starting with how do I get this done as fast and as cheaply as possible so that I can tick this off my list of things that I have to do for the brand in order for them to be satisfied that we're making the right decision. That's the wrong way to think of it. The right way to
Um,
think of it is how well can I do this so that when I have to make that decision, I'm confident that I'm making the right decision.
Yeah. And you would think that brands would come in on that side anyway, right? Why would you want to waste more
You
time?
would.
Wasting more time, wasting more money to get what the answers that you need, right?
You wish, girl.
Because
I
we have to
find that
reprogram
budget is
this.
driving more and more of more and more thinking process, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's like if your business was entirely driven by the budget and
Hmm.
not by the quality of the final product.
Hmm.
So in those cases, you go out and buy all the cheapest stuff you possibly can and try to throw it together as best you can to get out in the market. The reality is, as a videographer, as a
Hmm.
filmmaker, that that's going to lead to some really terrible work,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
There's no painting over the idea that the guy's wearing a GoPro on the top of his head, running around collecting the film,
Yeah.
and think that's going to be great. That only worked once, and I forget the name of that horror film that they shot in the woods. But essentially, that gimmick only happens once, and then after
Mm.
that, nobody will go for it. Right? This is terrible. I'm getting
Hmm.
sick just sitting there watching this film. But
Yeah.
it's the same thing in anything else you do. If you're driven by the budget, which most clients I've ever met and all the clients I've ever had are, if you're
Hmm.
overdriven by the budget, then you will do pretty poor work, because you don't have a choice. You're doing the best you can, and
Yeah.
that's all you can do. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
eventually, that erodes
The
the
studies,
well,
the
not only the
research.
individual studies themselves, but the reputation of insights
Hmm.
as a practice, right?
Mm-hmm. Because it lessens the strength of it, right? Because if they think they're just
Right.
getting the results to, and if right now it's sufficing what they believe to be true, they're not really growing from it. It's like, hey, we can do this next year again with the same results and the same and the
Yeah,
same
trying if you
strategy.
think of it this way, it's like if you were still if you went to the doctor a couple of times and he put leeches on you and said you were cured of
Hmm.
whatever you had, and you kept coming back because you weren't getting cured, you would realize that, oh, this guy's kind of a quack. It's not working.
Hmm.
But if
Hmm.
everybody in our industry is doing that, using leeches essentially to suck the blood out of you, then you realize that this industry isn't right, right? That
Hmm.
this isn't
Hmm.
working. So if you
Hmm.
do all these quick studies where you're spending almost no money, but you're asking three questions and that's enough,
Hmm.
I guarantee you don't think much of the insights function.
Well, I agree. Now, before we go to my next question, leave us
Sure.
with what is one question that a brand could start off with to kind of get more in depth with their customers. We said, "Do you love our brand?" That's out of the question, right? So, what is a good starting question that is good when a brand doesn't have the budget to hire someone to do their insights? What is something that can kind of get them going when they don't have the budget to hire an
I don't
agency?
think it's a question you ask. I think it's an observation you have. Like if
Okay.
if we take it back to well, you don't because you're too young, but remember in I think it was in the 80s, 60 Minutes came out with this piece on a company called IDEO. And it
Okay.
was it was genius at the time. Like nobody really been thinking about it this way, but essentially they followed this company IDEO, this consulting firm. They're a design consulting firm based in San Francisco, in Palo Alto, I think, actually. They're
Okay.
involved with Stanford, but they essentially did this project to redesign the shopping cart. And so
Okay.
they did all their work not by asking people questions, but simply observing their behavior, right? And so essentially, my first question on a brand that hasn't done any research would be, well, what's the path to purchase? How do they get from I don't even know about this product to choosing you at the tail end of the process. And so
Hmm.
the observation is let's watch people go through that process. Let's make sure we understand how they decide that they're going to purchase this product or that brand or this, even in this category. How
Hmm.
do they get there?
You know what? I think that goes into my next question is experiential research, experiential marketing, really, and research and ethnographic studies, right? That's what it is. It's kind of what are the behaviors? And it's not so much the questions, but it's kind of following them in a way where you're following their
Hmm.
activities on a daily. So can you share more just about what that is? What does that look like? And why brands need to tap into that more as they're getting
Yeah,
research?
absolutely. So ethnography is actually watching somebody in real time do the thing that you're interested in, right? Like make the
Mhm.
purchase that you want, or go through the process of shopping for it, or whatever it is. And in the early days, the best ethnographies were essentially we would follow you around inside your home and observe you doing all sorts of stuff, washing your clothes, taking care of your hair, or well, not me, but you guys. And then, so many other things that you do that are normal for you. How do you open the fridge? Where do you bang your hand when you're trying to reach into the fridge for a bottle of milk? How all A lot of those product ideas, redesigning the way the fridge is designed, making it two doors that open sideways instead of one on top of the other, or whatever it is, a lot of that stuff was developed through ethnography, just by
Okay.
going to people's houses and watching them cook dinner or watching
Hmm.
them in their morning routine, right?
Hmm.
How they
Hmm.
make their coffee, how they pick up their newspaper or get their information or whatever it is. All those things were learned by watching people do it.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
experiential essentially means that you're assigning them an experience and you're having that experience with them, right? So
Hmm.
I do this study, I call it an ethnography, but it really is an experiential study
Okay.
where I take people to, I've done it mostly for the restaurant industry, but I've also done it in retail, where I'll
Okay.
take a group of, say, a lunch group, people that meet regularly for lunch. They all work together or whatever it is. It's the usual. They're all standing around the water cooler and they go, "Hey, what do you guys want to do for lunch?" And they come up with 15 different ideas, right? And you
Hmm.
start there and then
Okay.
go to, all right, so where are we going to go? How did you guys make that decision? Who drives it? What's the decision process? What information do you need? How do you guys get there? Once you get there, how does that process work, and what's ideal for you? So
Hmm.
in my method, I use an iPhone, AirPods, and the videographer uses a monitor, a watch, essentially, an iWatch, to
Okay.
monitor the video. And we can do a focus group where the only people who know are the people who are in the group, who are participating, the respondents, right? The
Okay.
people who are at lunch. So
Okay.
I'll conduct a focus group at the table while we're ordering lunch and
Okay.
have the full experience with them and talk about what doesn't work and what works. And that's an experience happening, right? So it's
Hmm.
experiential. We're
Hmm.
doing it in real time.
Okay.
Everybody else doesn't know because it wouldn't work if the restaurant knew that was happening, right? It wouldn't work if
Um,
the retailer knew that, oh, there's some research guys from corporate are coming and they're gonna, then they get weird, right? They'd run around
yeah.
and
They're like
they'd
trying to be
clean up
perfect,
and
right? Yeah.
they try to be perfect. Yeah. And so I find a lot of research today is done so cheaply and fast that they are essentially putting the store in the position of trying to do its best thing, right?
Mm.
Trying to bias the study in order to get better results. We
Yeah.
don't even know if that's the reason for the study at all. The study where I kind of developed this technique was all about getting people to go to this restaurant more often than they do.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what can we change about this experience to make it so that you want to come back more and more and more and more?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and it was fun because nobody in the restaurant knew what was happening. We were just having a focus group where nobody knew what was going on except for the participants. It
And
was a lot of fun.
And I think what also
Yeah,
makes it more real is because it is real, right? It doesn't feel
it's
like
real.
it's not a production. It's not like you're coming in
No,
with these cameras and they feel like they have to answer the perfect questions and everything has to be right. You're pretty much going into their behaviors and just kind of being your friend, like, hey, like, so what do you think about this menu or whatever questions that
yeah.
you have, you know?
So one of the most interesting experiences was we're able to show the people at this restaurant chain who are responsible for the kids menu, for
Okay.
little kids stuff, that what they were doing wasn't working for little kids, and that we had video of a 4-year-old basically balling up the menu and trying to eat it. And we're like, you know, these
Yeah, this
paper
is not gonna
menus,
work.
this isn't working for this kid, right? So it's just weird little things like that where we came up with solutions for them
Okay.
by talking to the parents, right? So we had the experience, and then we're like, okay, look, your kid's eating paper.
Hmm.
Yeah, what would you rather have on this table to help your little Timmy get through this thing? And
Little
then
Timmy.
they could talk about it, right? Because they had that
Yeah.
experience. But if you did it in a focus group where there were a bunch of people sitting around and said, what if your kid picks up the menu and starts eating it? You go, well, I just I talked to that kid and I wouldn't let
Hmm.
him do it. That's not real.
Yeah.
But having
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
real experience allowed them to talk about their feelings and thoughts right there in real time. And it was so powerful to be able to show the video to the executives and have them go, oh, I get it. Bing, the light bulb goes
Mm.
on when you actually see it happen.
But you know what? I think that is why video is so important when it comes to research, right? It's
Yeah.
because especially with these corporations and these brands, hearsay, like if you get a text testimonial, that's anyone can just write down, yes, I want to do this, I want to do that. But when you see something in video and you see the emotion and the context and how they're saying what they're saying,
Hmm.
it changes and it gives the brands a light bulb of like, oh, this is what they want. Because a lot of times
Yeah.
the brands they drive what they want, right? And not so much what their
Right.
customers want. And that's why I think what you do is so important because it allows the brands to see, no, this is not what they're saying. They said they don't want
No.
paper menus. They want an iPad menu, right? So how do
Right.
we change the behavior when it comes to seeing video content,
Exactly.
hearing testimonials or feedback in video, you know?
Well, it's
Right.
very hard to convince an executive of something they believe,
Hmm.
of something else, right? Like they're
Yeah.
strong. They didn't become executives at corporations by being soft, by
Hmm.
being easygoing, by like, they're not like me. I'm pretty easygoing. If you strongly tell me something, I'll be like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
generally executives at large corporations are not soft people. They have strongly held beliefs that they hold on to very strongly, and they'll fight you for it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
even though you've heard it from the customer and they've told you it's not the way they like it or whatever, this
Hmm.
guy's been told by all his friends and family. I use a him, sorry. It
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
a her. They're just
Uh-huh.
as strong, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Either
yeah.
either gender, any gender, anybody really. They if they're in that position where they're the decision maker at a large corporation, they are strong people. They have strong feelings. You have to show video. You have to show them in order for
Hmm.
them to believe something,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah,
have to
yeah.
see it. I used to
Yeah.
really encourage my um, participants in focus groups to bring their executives. It didn't matter what the topic was, because I
Mm,
wanted those executives to see their customers in real time. That was all it was about. I didn't want to convince them to use me in the future, whatever. I didn't care about
okay.
that. If I could get an executive to go see a focus group and see their customers talk about their products and services,
Hmm.
then it made all the difference in the future convincing them to do research, right? They would get it.
Mm.
But it's hard
Now,
to convince them to come because they're already working like 80 hours a week. They're killing
yeah,
themselves.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
don't have time to
Now,
go to 4 hours of focus groups.
no, usually when they go to the focus group, right, or when they're getting this research, have you seen their minds change? Have you seen that
Oh,
transition where it's like, okay, I can't think what I used to thinking. Now I have to change and shift my.
I'll do you one. I'll do you one better.
Okay.
The place I see it most is when I'm presenting the final results, and I use a video clip to show something that I'm trying to convince them of, and all of
Hmm.
a sudden they see the customer doing that thing or saying that thing that explains it to them.
Hmm.
I love the light bulb going off. I love
The
when I do
aha
research,
moment.
I'm presenting and they go, oh, damn, I get it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like they got
yeah,
hit. It's like they got smacked with a tennis racket. You just,
yeah.
it's boom, all of a sudden. And I've been in those situations where I've talked to a whole board of people, like the executive board of their
Hmm.
company. And I'm
Hmm.
presenting this one thing. And to me, it was relatively innocuous. And all of a sudden, one of the guys nudges the guy next to him and starts explaining it to them as if it was their observation, right? Like they get it. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, that guy's like, boom, wow. And he's starting to explain it to the guy and what it means to them and why they need to do it and all this stuff. And he then, it's like wildfire. Like all
Hmm.
of a sudden, somebody else gets it. And then all of a sudden, the whole room is lit up. It's
Hmm.
amazing to see the light go off.
That is why you do what you do, right? It's that moment where you're like, this is why it's
Boy,
worth it
that
because
is, I
now.
do it for the money, dude, but
Okay.
that is the golden piece, right? Like, if that's the icing on the cake, right?
Okay.
Everything else is hard work, but if you get to that point where you see the light go off in somebody's eyes, that's amazing.
Worth it.
I
Yeah.
love that part. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another
That's the
question I
love
have.
part. The money part is just,
That's the
I got
great. I
food to
mean, money's
spend,
great, right?
right?
That's
Yeah. Yeah, we got to do that.
we gotta do
But
that. Yeah.
the gold is, getting somebody to
The
understand
aha
something
moment.
that they didn't
Now,
understand before.
yeah, yeah. Another question I have is a lot of times brands will wait to bring you in order to do these studies. And I always believe that they should be doing this before you even come in, right? So you have something to work from when it comes to what they're looking for, what they want to change, what's the behavior of their audience. So I always love the idea of capturing testimonials or feedback right when the
Hmm.
customer is experiencing your brand. How does that work with
Yeah.
what you do, right? Do you think brands should be capturing that throughout the year? And then
Oh,
when we
yeah.
bring you in, it kind of ties in a story where it's easier for you to kind of streamline what they need?
No, absolutely. The more information I have at the beginning, when I start designing whatever I'm going to do, the better, right?
Hmm.
That's the
Hmm.
way they figure out that there's something wrong. Like
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
they have customers come on and say, "Oh, love this brand, but this product I am not so sure about. This isn't working for me," or whatever they're saying. Most of the time, they don't say enough for us to come up with a solution. They
Okay.
say enough in little clips in order for us to understand there's a problem.
Okay.
Solutions come from doing harder work, right? We get
Mm.
deeper. We do
Hmm.
more work with them. We really come to figure it out. But the at the front end, if they're telling you, they're going to tell you that there's a problem, and that's what you want to address, right?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't care
Hmm.
if 100 people come on and say, "Oh, they're lovely, they're awesome, they're perfect," no, 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 and then they go by the other guy. That
Hmm.
I don't care about that. What I care about is, oh, I barely made the choice for you guys this time, and I was pretty dissatisfied with this, or I thought this could be better, or whatever it is, so that we learn what the problem is, so we can go address it. Figure out how many other people feel that way. How impactful is this on the business? How likely is it that that the consumer is going to change their mind?
Mm.
How sticky is your brand, right?
Yeah,
In this
yeah, yeah,
space,
yeah.
like, how likely are you to stick with it,
Yeah. But that's why I think it's important before they even bring you in to ask those questions that can give you way more access to the minds behind who was giving the review or who was talking about
right?
their brand. So you can
Yeah,
have more context to make, what is going to
I
be
would
the
say
strategy.
the more good information you have on the front end. Now, I don't think of those three questions that somebody throws out on Qualtrics as particularly good information.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
video, on the other hand, I find video clips of the consumer, I find to be very good information.
Hmm.
I mean, and there's a difference between qualitative and quantitative, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't help me to know that 80% of the respondents think we have a good love our brand when we ask, "Do you love our brand?" Right?
Hmm.
I don't care
Hmm.
about that.
Hmm.
There's nothing to compare it to. That's a piece of data
It makes us
floating out
feel
in
good.
space
It
with
just makes us
no,
feel
yeah,
good.
maybe. It
Oh my
shouldn't.
gosh,
It
they
should make you
love
feel like
us.
you've underdone the job,
Yeah.
but like you've not done sufficient work. But
Yeah.
what I'm really interested in is seeing people talk about real issues they're having,
Hmm.
and then we can go
Hmm.
solve them, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it may be a problem for, it's funny. I've done research where, one person says the brilliant thing that makes
Hmm.
all the difference in the world. Nobody's thinking about it, right? This
Hmm.
one little thing. And then one guy says, yeah, I, I need this, or I want this thing. And if you told everybody else that you talked to that that thing was a possibility, they'd go, oh yeah, that's so obvious. I'd want that too.
Hmm.
But they just went through life not thinking about it. But
Hmm.
there's one guy in there. This is the AI thing that you got to think about.
Okay.
Um, so one guy in there will say something brilliant, and you're like, oh, that changes everything. That changes the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
And um, and that happens to me almost every project. There's one or two people who come up with something that's so absolutely brilliant that you have to
Have
address
to
it,
tap
right?
in.
It will
Hmm.
change something. But
Hmm.
if AI were to analyze that, it would completely eliminate that person. It would
Yeah.
say, that's an outlier. That can't be
Hmm.
important. He's the only person who said it. I'm going to report on all this other stuff that everybody else said, and we're not going to worry about that little thing.
Hmm.
That's why a live person who's analyzing this stuff will
It's so
see
important.
that thing and go, "Oh, that's the important gold nugget in this thing
Hmm.
that we're not going to get. We would never even see if we didn't do the analysis,
But
if we
I
didn't
think
look
we
at it."
I think we have to hone into that even more because,
Good.
a lot of people fear AI. And I don't think AI can ever replace market research because we need real people to analyze. We need real people to talk. We need real responses. We can't do anything if the responses are not, we can't feed the data, right? If the responses are not real. So I think, we can use AI to streamline processes, right? We can create our own flow when it comes to AI. But when it
Hmm.
comes to the work and when it comes to how we analyze, there's nothing that can replace a human's eye on that.
Totally agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
you are preaching to the choir. I couldn't agree more. Right? Right? I
Yeah,
go to
yeah.
conferences now, and everybody's talking about the last 3 years. Everybody's talking about how
AI,
important AI
AI.
is and how we all have to know about AI and how it works and we have to use it. And so I use AI, but
Hmm.
not to do the final analysis and not
Are
to
your
replace me
customers?
as the data collection,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm doing the interview because I need to hear that interview. I need to know when that person comes up with that golden nugget, I need to be able to ask, why is this important to you?
Hmm.
What were you thinking? How does this affect your decision? All those questions that come up, AI is not going to figure out that that thing was even important.
Yeah. And you know what? Your
I need
customers
to.
are not AI, right? Your customers are not fake.
No.
So how are you
Hmm.
going to analyze how are you not going to analyze something that, that you
Yeah.
can't because they're real people and you're a real
Now,
person. So you know we can understand human context and emotions, which AI cannot.
I think the business world tries very hard to reduce the number of people involved, right?
Hmm.
Like,
We're saving
because it's
money,
cheaper,
right?
right?
Yeah.
They're saving
Yeah.
money. The problem is there comes a point where a human being is necessary to make the difference.
Hmm. Hmm.
And in research, AI can help. It can help process things. It can help speed things through. It can help analyze mountains of quantitative data. Absolutely. You
Hmm.
use AI for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are things that need a human touch.
Yeah.
And so figure out, it's like any other tool. You don't use a hammer to do brain surgery. Well, at least I don't.
I
But
mean, you know.
but you use a hammer to nail to hammer a nail, right?
Yeah.
Use the tool in the right place and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Use the tool to do brain surgery and you'll be sorry, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think you have to know your work and you have to know your audience. You have to know when it works and when it doesn't. And I think that is where a lot of fear comes in because people don't understand that it doesn't have to replace anything. It can
Hmm.
enhance what you're doing, can enhance your workflow, but it doesn't have to replace the work that you're doing with the
Yep.
brands or with the insights. That's a nugget. We're gonna put that as a nugget. So when it comes to score metrics, you have found a metrics, right? You found a score metric. What exactly is score metrics, and how is it the
So I have
alternative to NPS?
cool. Thank you for asking me that. I have two companies. One's called HauckEye. It's a solo practice consultancy, and that's what we've been talking about. That's
Hmm.
when I'm in my talking about research mode. That's mostly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Scoremetrics is something I developed in response to this fascination with Net Promoter Score. So Net Promoter Score, and I mean, for your audience, Net Promoter
Hmm.
Score is basically something that was written about in the 1980s,
Hmm.
and the whole world bought it as
The
fact, right?
go-to.
Essentially, they
Hmm.
said, yeah, the whole business world said, oh, we were doing all this customer satisfaction research, asking people how satisfied they were, and now we're being asked to do Net Promoter Score. And Net Promoter Score says essentially is how likely are you to recommend, right? And
Hmm.
it's still using a 10-point scale. It's
Hmm.
called the Likert scale, right?
Hmm.
So it's still using the Likert scale, which is a technology from the 1930s,
Okay.
right?
Is
And it
it
says
really?
essentially is the most important technology of the marketing research industry is the
Okay.
Likert scale, asking you
Okay.
stuff on a 10-point scale. Problem is that we've heard it already a
Hmm.
zillion times.
Hmm.
So a couple of things happen there. One is that Net Promoter Score is not asked in a competitive context. So you asked me, how likely are you to recommend HauckEye as a marketing resource consultancy? And
Hmm.
I give you a number. My usual number is an eight because I'm a pretty friendly guy, right? I'm pretty
Hmm.
easygoing, and
Hmm.
eight's a high number, but it's not perfect, and so
Hmm.
I give you an eight.
Okay.
And I give eight to almost everything else too, which
Okay.
means that there's no differentiation in the data, right? And it has
Hmm.
nothing to do with how well you're doing or anything like that. It's just that that's kind of the score I give. Now, if
Hmm.
you knock my socks off, I might give you a nine, but you're not
Okay.
perfect, so there's no way.
So
But
have you never, is 10 just out of the question? Is there never a perfect experience?
generally, for most people, 10 is out of the question,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Like most people don't give tens, but
Okay.
some people do, and that's totally fine. But if they give you a 10, they'll give me a 10, and if they give me a
Okay.
10, they'll give the next guy a 10. It's
Got it.
not it's not a very differentiating data point, right?
Okay.
Asking
Okay.
about your brand without the context of anything else is pretty meaningless. I've been I so Score Metrics actually changed the design to my. I have a design I call Sort and Score. Essentially, I invented it as an alternative to something called Max Diff. Max
Okay.
Diff basically is this technique that says it's owned by Sawtooth Software, and it basically says it analyzes your choices based on a whole series of cards. So I present you, and it has five of the, say it has, you have 10 brands in your list. It shows you five of those brands and says, pick your best one and pick your worst one. And it
Okay.
repeats that exercise over and over again, but it never shows you the whole competitive set. I didn't like that design for a couple of reasons. One, it takes up a lot of what I call questionnaire real estate. So
Hmm.
it takes a lot of time in the survey. So I don't like that there's a process. It's not the best, and it gets you this data, but it takes a long time to get to.
Okay.
So I designed this approach called sort and score that says, okay, take all the attributes, and let's say there's 10. Take all the brands and
Hmm.
sort them according to how likely you are to recommend them, right?
Okay.
And so
Okay.
now you've got a rank order. You've got a
Okay.
list. But now the next question is, now take 100 points and allocate them across these brands to show me how much more you like the top one versus the next ones, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and it adds it up for you. So you put in, the top brand is a 50, and then the next one might be a 20, and then you allocate your points according to how likely you are to recommend those brands. And now all of a sudden you have relative distance between them. That's what max diff produces, but it's
Okay.
not as obvious. It's kind of a black box. My
Okay.
approach is very, very obvious because all you're doing is adding. You simply add the data and
Okay.
you get the answer. You
Okay.
so sort and score is designed that way as well. Instead of getting just your number, we're asking the question in a competitive context. So
Okay.
sort and score would say, look at these 10 brands. How likely are you to recommend them? Sort them in order. So you sort them, and then the next question is now allocate your 100 points. When I'm done, I can tell you not only where do you fit into the market, but where your
Hmm.
competitors fit as well, which explains,
Mm.
which helps you understand how you're doing in the market. If you think about net promoter score, what if I'm a promoter, right? Like I get a 9,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
then everybody else in my industry also gets a 9.
I think
They
it's
don't
just,
know that,
yeah. But then
right?
I
So if
also
I'm
think,
Hertz, let's use an example of car company, rental companies. I'm
yeah, yeah,
Hertz, and I think I'm competing with Avis, and so I. uh, But in Net Promoter Score, I don't even ask about my competition. I ask you, how likely are you to recommend Hertz in the future?
yeah.
If I had the same experience, I'm equally likely to recommend
To every car
Avis
brand, yeah.
and Budget and all those. And frankly, I've been using Turo lately, so I might probably would recommend Turo a little higher. But you don't know that when you ask Net Promoter Score. You just
Yeah.
know what your score is.
And I think it's a feel good score, right? I think it's just, it
Oh,
makes you feel good because you're
it's
not getting anything.
deceptive.
Yeah. It's like a
It's
facade, I was
worse
gonna
than
say.
feel good. Like
Yeah.
feel good isn't a bad thing.
Okay.
I'm happy if you feel good,
Okay.
but deceptive is something different. I think
Mm.
Net Promoter Score is deceptive because it doesn't tell me where I fit into the market. It just gives
Mm.
me this, meaningless, this
Yeah.
is where I'm at
Customers
today
are
versus where I
happy.
was before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This year my customers are happy. Next year, they're super
right.
happy. And then the next year after that, they're extremely happy. We've just been
But
serving
they
our
might feel
clients
the same way
very
about
well
that might have more to do with where the economy is today than
than your
anything
actual
else,
brand.
right? Like I might be, yeah, or it might have a lot more to do with how I feel that day, the
Yeah.
day that I'm rating it, than anything else, right? Like the problem with the Likert scale is you don't really know what the basis of that decision is, and you don't
Mhm.
really understand the psychology of the impact of all the other things that are going on in your life
Hmm.
how it affects that, how it affects your score, right? So on one day, I might give Hertz a 7. On the next day, I might give them a 9, but I had the exact same experience, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't matter. But when you
Yeah.
do it my way through sort and score, because the number's fixed, right? Because I'm allocating points across these brands, it's giving you my true feeling about where that brand is relative to the rest of the competition. And it doesn't change. Like the experience doesn't affect my day, doesn't affect how I score the experience because I'm allocating
Mm.
all the points whether I have a good day or whether I have a bad day.
Yeah. No, let's do a use case real fast, right? So they
Sure.
use your score metrics.
Mm-hmm.
What should a brand do once they get that score? What should be the takeaway? And then how should they move forward from there? What should be the steps to kind
China, it
of,
totally depends on the results, right? Like,
okay,
so
okay,
let's take an example. Let's take our Hertz example,
okay,
right? So let's say our results are that my Hertz customers put Hertz as their most likely to recommend, and it gets 90 points where everybody else is sharing 10, right?
okay,
That's
okay,
that's unusual, but let's say that were to happen.
okay,
So what would that would tell me is that really, if I'm Hertz, keep doing it. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change
okay.
what you're doing now because everybody loves you. Your customers love you.
Hmm.
Keep taking care of them. Keep doing what you're doing. There's nothing
Okay,
to do, right?
okay, okay.
Now, if you do the same study with non-customers, that's, and you get similar results. Hertz is still number one. It's the most popular, most likely to recommend, then great. Why would you change anything? Keep doing
Hmm.
what you're doing. But
Okay.
if you come back and you do that research and you get that Turo has passed you up in terms of likelihood to recommend, that
Hmm.
would tell me like they're getting 40 points and you're getting 20.
Hmm.
That would tell me, hey, wait a second, I'm in trouble, which I think is probably the case. I think people
Hmm.
at Hertz are walking around going, holy cow, this Turo thing is killing us.
You
But
know what?
I'm a fan, right?
I didn't realize Turo was so huge until every friend I talk to that's renting a car, they're like, "Oh no, we go to Turo. Like we don't need to go to budget. We
No,
don't need to go." I'm
we're
like,
not
"Oh
going to
wow."
budget or
They're
Hertz
not going to
anymore.
budget.
No.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah.
there are reasons why you might want to go to Hertz. Like if I was traveling on business and I knew that, and I wasn't paying for it, there is a convenience to being taken to the car, it being ready, and that you
No,
know
it's
the
perfect.
process. But it's
Yeah. Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
know the process, that's all. Like once you
Hmm.
get used to the Turo process, I have not had a fail on Turo once. Like
Mm.
the cars aren't as fancy because I don't pay for
The
the
fancy
fanciest
cars.
cars, right? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
cheap. I'm
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah.
So that's a better experience for me, right?
Got it.
Once I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
used to it.
Got
Yeah,
it.
but it took a
So
while.
So when they get a review, say they say Turo's is taking over, right? Now, how
Hmm.
should Hertz, how should Budget, how should they kind of come to that conclusion
Oh,
that they
baby,
need
dive
to?
into some research. Start
Okay, that's when they
figuring
come to
out what
you.
it is that
Is that
Turo's doing. That would breed so many good research projects, right? Like
hmm
I'd start following people around. I'd start following people who use Turo around, figuring out what the fails are, when things don't work, what the challenges are, how could we make that experience better. I would be following my customers around and figuring out, how's the Turo experience a better thing than what I'm giving, and how do they see it? Would they recommend making changes that Turo does to work for
hmm
them? How do you make Hertz look more like Turo?
hmm hmm
Or how do you take the things that Hertz is doing and fix them so that they're, they're more competitive with Turo?
Yeah.
We can do that. We can ask those questions in research. And that's where video is going to come in. That's where a lot of in-person conversation is going to come in. Putting together a survey that just goes a little bit deeper is not going to get you those answers
The
that you're looking
answers.
for,
But you know what?
right?
This project seemed like it would be really fun. I think we should start this. I think we need to go to
We
a
should do
soccer.
this.
We should do
Yeah,
this because
we should try
I
to
think
convince Hertz that,
we
hey, you
should.
might be in trouble. You
You
we
might.
could do some research to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize how fun, especially if you like the psychology and consumer behaviors, these projects are
Oh
so
yeah.
intuitive and so fun to just figure out exactly like buyer behaviors. Like, why did you choose this and not
Hmm.
this? Like, what was the driving factor for that, you know? Yeah, so
China,
I'm
because a
gonna,
component of my research involves kind of uh, it's a little bit sneaky, a little surreptitious,
okay.
so I film this stuff without letting
Then no.
people know that filming's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get
Mm-hmm.
real. Now, I don't show those people on camera. When
Mm-hmm.
I edit the material, I don't share that
Show there.
information.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I keep their identities secret, but the behavior is visible.
Yeah.
And conversation about the behavior is very visible. And the
Mm-hmm.
client can see, hey, my representative is doing this. And oh, by the way, we train them to say that. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
this is how the customer reacts. Just those little things make all the difference in the world.
That's what makes it so powerful, I think, is when you can film it and you can get those because people say whatever, right? But it's really how they're saying it, with the facial
Yeah.
expressions of how they're saying it. That's what's moving the needle of like,
That's the
they're not really
nuance.
having.
Yeah, there's
That's
so much nuance in human
power.
behavior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where the power lies. Well, this has been such a great comment. Last question, and I'm gonna let you go because I can be on here all day with you. What do you think?
Well, by me. What's your
What do
question?
you, listen, the last question I have is, what do you think is the future for 2026 when it comes to this space? Market
I don't
research,
know.
brand insights.
I'm not sure. I'm going to a conference next week, and I'm sure somebody will tell me.
Okay.
But right now, to be honest with you, I do not know what our future is. I was talking to um, in light of this, I was talking to a young man I met at the University of Colorado. So I live close to the University of Colorado. I donate time over there. I do some activities to help students get prepared for the real world, that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, and at this one gathering, I met this guy. Really liked him from the jump. Right, he's a really smart guy, marketing major, but not sure what he wants to do with himself.
Hmm.
So we've had a couple of sessions, and he's asking me about getting into marketing research. Because he can see that I love what I do.
Hmm.
And so he's like, I want some of that. He gets
Mm.
he gets that you should do something that you're going to do it for 40 years. You might as well figure out what you
Fueled
really
you.
like, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so he gets that, and he really wants to do something that he's going to love for 40 years.
Okay.
And as we were talking, I was suggesting we were talking about getting a master's degree in marketing research, which is there are 5 schools in the country in the U.S. that offer that degree,
Okay.
and and I've worked with or have been on the board of almost all of them, right? I've been to
Okay.
all the campuses, I've seen all the programs, I've talked to all the heads of the programs, and they're all very impressive people with very good intentions, and they're really smart, right?
Hmm.
The thing I told this guy Eli was that he asked me if he should do it. And I said, look, Eli, I'm not recommending you get into marketing research, but I am telling you that the tools you learn by getting a master's in marketing research, it's better than getting an MBA because it'll teach you how to think about the world, how to assess things, and how to design research that will allow you to understand what the consumer wants and what
Hmm.
they're thinking, how they think, and how you can reach them.
Hmm.
That's would be far more valuable to me than the generic MBA, right?
Hmm.
It's just
Hmm.
you may not be in research in the long run. You might end up in brand, or you might be doing something else completely different. But if
Hmm.
you're interested in figuring out the psychology of
People.
buying behavior,
Hmm.
right? If
Hmm.
you really want to understand people and how they act, then that's the degree, and then figure out how to apply it in whatever you're doing. You'll be
I love
invaluable
that.
from a consulting standpoint. You'll be invaluable in so many different ways because you understand how the consumer thinks, and you know how to ask. You know how to
Yeah.
figure it out. I thought, um, I don't know that marketing research as a discipline will last a whole lot longer, right? Like for the rest of my
Really?
career. I hope so. I hope
But
it'll last
why?
my career
But
because I think the
why? If
tools, the tools to make it cheaper and faster and easier are so ubiquitous, and they're so easy to use and acquire that
Okay.
they've done their job, right? The people who build those tools have done their job. They've built tools that anybody can use to ask questions. Now,
Hmm.
problem is that that's not always the best thing. That's not always the research that we need to do, but nobody really knows that that's
What
the
to do?
case, right? They don't get it. There will be a
Mhm.
tipping point where I think people will go, I call it the new Coke moment, right?
Okay.
There will be
Okay.
a point where somebody screws it up so badly that they go, oh,
We need
if we'd
someone.
asked that right, we'd know better, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't ask it right, so we don't know
Yeah.
any better. But
Yeah.
most people don't think of the research that much. If there's a screw up in the decision, they'll take responsibility for it. Oh, I guess I didn't see that. I screwed up that decision. When in
Hmm.
reality, it was your inputs were mediocre, right? We
Hmm.
could have done a
Hmm.
better job consulting for you. As an
Hmm.
industry, as insights, we can do a better job. Problem is, we're losing to faster and cheaper. I have a saying, there's that saying, better, faster, cheaper. You can
Hmm.
pick two, but you can't have all three. It's true. You can't do better. The problem is that people blow off better. They do faster and cheaper and call it better.
Really
That isn't
fast.
the
Yeah.
case. That ain't
Yeah.
true,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Faster and
Yeah.
cheaper doesn't necessarily mean that it's
Mean
better.
better.
It
Yeah.
means it's faster and cheaper, right?
But
Like better is something completely different.
yeah. But do you think that doing it cheaper, right? It has its consequences, right? So do you think eventually they have to go
Absolutely.
back to an expert to really
That's the
figure
tipping point.
because okay,
Yeah.
got it, got
That,
it, got it.
but I don't know that that's happening next year, but I think that
Okay.
will happen. That's the new Coke moment, right? They did a
Mm,
really bad piece of research that turned out to advise them to make Coke taste more like Pepsi. So they
hmm.
did it, and they
Hmm.
called it New Coke. And unfortunately, that's not what Coke
People
drinkers
want.
wanted, and it was
Hmm.
totally different from what their expectation was. So, they abandoned it quickly. They pivoted fast, but it
Hmm.
cost them
Hmm.
billions of dollars
You know what they
to do
said?
this one screw up based on bad research.
They were like, we need to
That's
call Chris. We have to call Chris because we tried to do this by ourselves, and now we have to
Chris
bring in the
didn't
experts.
Chris didn't know any of this stuff when they
Chris,
made those decisions. They barely even understood what I was doing.
now they have to pay you $2 million just because they messed up and tried to be cheaper, right? And now they
That's
have to
right.
fix it all. So, brands, listen. This is the conversation I think that's important for them to understand that cheaper is not better. It's gonna cost way more in the long run by not just
It
being
does.
patient, hiring the right people to really do the research that you need, you know? And
That's
that is when
always
we
the case,
bring,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right?
that's
Like,
always
when you buy that cheap whatever, that you're going to be,
I'm
in
gonna
the
pay
long
for
run,
it.
you're going to be sorry that you did it, right? Like,
Yeah,
that tool's not going to
yeah,
last.
yeah,
Darn.
yeah, yeah,
Why
yeah.
did I
It
buy
was
that?
like
For $5 more, I could have gotten something much better.
it lasts me for 10 years. Now I have to buy it
Yeah,
again next week, right? Just because I wanted to
right?
pay, lots for it.
Exactly.
Chris, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to
It
chat
was
with
so much
me,
fun for me. Thank you.
all the gems. And where can people find you? Where can when they have got to the end of like we need someone to come and handle all of this, all
Oh,
of our research. Where do they find you at?
you can email me directly at Chris at HAUCK at hold on. Let's do this again. Chris at HAUCKEYE.com.
Okay.
Or you can go to my
Okay.
website at HAUCKEYE, HauckEye.com.
Okay. Awesome. You guys, please tap into Chris. Even if it's just for a conversation to get you going, I'm sure he can be, very useful for your strategy. Chris, thanks again for coming on and chatting with me.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you. Also, I'll
Oh,
talk to
you're
we'll have
such a
this
blast.
conversation
Thank
again
you.
soon.
I
Talk to you
hope so.
guys.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.